So moving on to this week now that we just finished up, Monday morning, same deal. Monday morning as the previous week. Easy ride home from work, and recovery session with a note in there of 2 weeks taper. So giving myself kind of 2 weeks to freshen up, but kind of this week still just wanted to still hit some intensity and make sure I wasn't just completely switching off, which is a hard thing to do. Tuesday morning, I did the same bike session as the previous Tuesday with the heat going again. So I won't click through these efforts, but I did turn the heat down a touch because I felt like the previous week it was just a little bit too high. So exact same session, and I did do all the little 30-second efforts at the end as well. So we'll click into those actually. 30 seconds, average power 308, average power 301, average power 310, average power 309. So heart rate only getting up to 155 for those efforts. This week, that 10 minutes on the last block hit 160 heart rate. So a bit lower than the week before, but with the cooler temps in there, it did make it a little bit more enjoyable. And I still think there was the heat adaptations there. So it was 31 as opposed to 34, going by the Garmin, which I think would be about right. Seems to be somewhat accurate, the old Garmin. That was Tuesday morning, an hour 24 complete. Average heart rate 132 as opposed to 140s the week before. Average power 178. Tuesday afternoon, 6K jog, 31 minutes, 5:17s. Average heart rate 123. Now, Wednesday morning, had a 2 mile, 2 800, 2 400, 2 200 session planned. Just not quite feeling it on Wednesday morning. Weirdly had a small little bit of inflammation in my ankle, which may have been from residual fatigue from running in the Alpha Dogs earlier the previous week, plus the Sunday I was up and down on the ladder doing some stuff at home just in flip-flops. So I don't know if kind of just a couple of poor choices there aggravated my ankle a little bit just above it on the inside. So I kind of started this run and felt like it didn't feel bad at all, and I could have ran through, and I still think I would have been fine, but it was just one of those things that's kind of just there. And in addition to that, I just felt pretty kind of rubbish and flat anyway as well. So I warmed up. And started the session as planned, though kind of made that decision midway through the second mile that I think that was going to be it for today. Ended up doing a long warm-up, 31 minutes, average pace 5:09 into the 1 miles. So I did rep 1, 3:58. So like I just couldn't get moving, kind of. I didn't have any gears to move up above kind of that pace, which is kind of still below marathon pace. So it was just like I was muscling it and having to work quite a bit. So it felt pretty rubbish. Average pace 3:58, average heart rate 145. I did the 3-minute float recovery, average pace 4:57. And then I did the second mile and I felt a little bit better, but still not quite kind of what I wanted to be. 3:55 average heart rate 148. So heart rate looks good, pace looks good, but like overall feeling was pretty rubbish. So kind of midway through that effort, decided to pull the pin. Decided I was going to finish that rep out and then pull the pin on the rest and just jog out the rest of jog for 3K to cool down. So ended up doing 3K recovery kind of cool down, average heart rate 125, average pace 5:04. So not the greatest morning, though kind of I haven't bailed out halfway through many sessions during this block. Probably this might be the only one from memory. I've kind of adjusted a few on the fly, but still kind of completed 95% of the work that I prescribed myself. But this one, yeah, completely missed it. But that's cool. It was kind of at that point where I was like, a week and a half out to the race. I just wanted to, again, still just thinking about health and trying to make good decisions. It wasn't the time to be trying to push through. 2 weeks ago, I think would have been the time to kind of push through. But now, kind of just in that mindset of like, you got to let your body dictate a bit more, and you can't just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So I made that decision to do that. Still very hard for me to do, but I'm getting much better at it as I go through these weeks, and kind of by building these videos and doing these recaps, I'm kind of holding myself accountable in that sense, to like keep myself healthy above all. So I ended up with an hour and 2 complete, 13K, 449 average heart rate 127. All right. So that kind of leads us into Wednesday, Thursday. After not completing that session in full on Wednesday, I made some changes to, I kind of made a few changes to the rest of the week, and I'll do my best to remember those, because I kind of needed to adjust so much stuff. I couldn't leave the sessions in there. Otherwise, it just would have looked messy. So, I originally was going to double on the Wednesday. So I had a 6K run planned Wednesday afternoon. And then Thursday morning, I had a bike session planned, 2 hours on the bike, and a 10K jog. Friday morning was going to be 6K, 16K kind of medium long run, and then the Saturday Sunday was going to be 2 hours on the bike with 10K run, and then the Sunday was going to be a 20K long run. So I've ended up kind of with this here, and kind of just tried to change things up to ensure I was still getting the same amount of volume in that I had planned at the start of the week, and just kind of modified everything a little bit. But as it kind of turned out on Wednesday night, I just made that decision kind of as I was going to bed. Like, I'm having Thursday off completely. I kind of made some plans to train on the Thursday. I had this treadmill session here that I've ended up doing today. I had that planned on the Thursday. I was going to do an easy ride beforehand, and then I was going to run in the afternoon. So I kind of made all these changes, and then ended up deciding just not to train anyway. And I think that was kind of the right thing to do. It was just like a split-second decision, like, fuck it, I'm not training. Like, and kind of sometimes when you make that decision, immediately, instantly, you just make that decision, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, fuck, thank God. You kind of, when it's a relief like that, it's the right thing to do. You kind of and ahhing, you felt a bit rubbish Wednesday morning. Ankle was a little bit tender and a bit flared up. Like, it had a bit of a sore spot on it where I could touch it and it would be sore. I'm kind of like thinking about it. Do I train anyway? Do I do this? Do I do that? It's like when you're kind of in that limbo of like, fuck, do I do it? Do I not do it? Just fucking don't do it. And instantly it's just like, all right, sweet. Fucking not training. I don't have to worry about things getting worse. It's just like so much kind of mental games going on. There's such a headspace element to this shit that, like, you got to be able to make smart decisions, and like, but also knowing when is the right time to push through things. I think that makes a difference as well. It's fucking hard, but I'm getting better at it for myself. I feel as a coach, I've been pretty good at it as well. You it's just such a hard thing to balance. And people will always say, like, for big races like Ironmans and marathons, there's such a fine line between being fit and fucked, and it's just so true. We all want to do the best we can, so we're generally pushing ourselves as hard as we can to try and extract everything out of it. But having the ability to say no, I think, is also extremely valuable, and only time will tell as to what the outcome of that's going to be. So, like, I have zero idea how I'm going to perform over 42Ks next week. Having never ran a standalone marathon, and having, like, I just don't know. So it's going to be exciting. So anyway, Friday morning on the trainer, this was a heat session as well. Nah, it mustn't be, only 125 heart rate. Let's have a look. So I kind of just built a strength session to do on the trainer, just to load the legs up a little bit. So just some low cadence, heavy gear work, decent warm up, 10 minutes, average power 146, 3 minutes, average power 156, 3 minutes, average power 162, 3 minutes, 170, 3 minutes, 173. So just a slow build. 10 minutes, average power 190, so average heart rate 127. So this definitely wasn't a heat session. 2 minutes easy, and then I did 4 by 5 minutes low cadence. So low cadence being around 60, and just trying to kind of load those legs and glutes up with the low cadence. Average power 231, average heart rate 238, average cadence 63. 3 minutes easy spin recovery, average power 156. And then the same again for another 3 reps, 5 minutes, average power 231, 5 minutes, average power 230, 5 minutes, average power 230, average heart rate 137, into a short cool down, 3 minutes recovery, and then a short 5-minute cool down. Average power 132. So it was a good one to get the legs going again after a day off. Planned hour 16, hour 11 complete. Average heart rate 125. Normalized power 190. Friday morning. Friday afternoon 6K jog. 6Ks at 5:15s. Average heart rate 133. It's actually quite warm that afternoon. That was outside. It's quite warm. Meant to be in winter, but had some weird weather lately. And then again, 20 minutes recovery. So yesterday morning, hour 41 planned, hour 40 complete. 20Ks at 5 minutes average heart rate 126, so nice and flat. Felt pretty junk actually, ticking along, like it wasn't an easy feeling run. These numbers would indicate that it was, but it wasn't. Just felt pretty rubbish and wasn't really moving that well, to be fair. Kind of muscling a little bit, so I put that down to that day off. Actually, I don't know why, but I tend to find a day off from everything kind of takes a couple of days for me to kind of find my legs again and move somewhat okay. So that's another reason why I don't like having days off, is because you kind of just, I lose that momentum, and I find like momentum is very important. So kind of training every day, it keeps you sharp and it keeps you kind of mentally stimulated and in that zone. You have a day off from it, you tend to switch off from it, and I think overall it's probably a good thing, but you switch off from it, and then it kind of takes that, a couple of days to kind of find your rhythm again and kind of get going again. And that's the hardest thing with all of this. It's like you're constantly in and out of these like shifting mindsets of, trying to switch off from it and relax from it, keep a balance, focus on work, focus on your training. If you're in a relationship, you got that as well. There's kind of all these elements and things going on that you're managing and dealing with. It's actually like very, very hard, and like I can understand completely why people have collapses in training and they spiral and they're inconsistent and all that. Like it's it's fucking hard to keep motivated and keep training, especially as it gets closer and closer. You kind of become more fatigued, you're tired, you mentally you just want to completely switch off from everything and kind of just not, you're like, but you got to just stay engaged with it as long as you can. And like if you're completely out of it, sure, fucking have that 1-2 days off to completely switch your mind off from it and come back to it. But it's just that momentum, like keeping that momentum going is important in my opinion. Just trying to really limit those kind of down off days, like even just a walk or an easy ride, in my opinion, is better than a complete day off if you can do it. Sometimes you just can't. So that was Saturday morning. This morning I've ended up with 2 hours 42 on the bike, normalized power 167, average heart rate 113. So ride and then straight into a heat session on the treadmill. So this was kind of the efforts that I dropped on Wednesday. So the back half of that session that I dropped on Wednesday. So I did the 2 1 miles and then flagged it. And so I kind of picked that back up today and I did 2 800s, 2 400s, 2 200s. Though I added in the element of the heat and no fan on the treadmill. So I took a cool time lapse of this one, where I put the temperature gauge right there in front of the camera, so you can see me running and you can see the temperature changing and the humidity changing in the room at the same time. So that will be dropped in here, and you'll be able to see that. It's pretty cool. And this was tough this session in the heat. So it was 2 800s, 2 200s. 2 800s, 2 400s, 2 200s with a float recovery, but those float recoveries very quickly turned into a bit of a walk because just can't get the heart rate down in that heat. Like it's not too bad when it's up and it feels all right, but for that recovery, just trying to get it down was so hard. So I recorded laps on my watch. I did record the laps, though the distances aren't correct because it was on the treadmill, but we can have a look at the different heart rates and, right from the start. So I had the warm-up set on 11.5 Ks an hour, which I think which is like around 5:15 pace. So the 3K warm-up was 16:13, 15:45. So yeah, 5:15 average. Rep 1, roughly 800 in 3:10. So I don't know what the pace works out that to be, but it was 15. I put it on 15.5 speed on the treadmill. So I know that that's quicker than 4-minute pace. Average heart rate 159. Max heart rate 167. But you can immediately see that at the end of the rep there, the heart rate doesn't come down. Takes a while for it to come back down. So I did 2 minutes float recovery, average heart rate 163. It's just far too high for recovery. Into another 800, this time 3:13. So it could have been longer, it could have been a bit longer. I can't exactly remember, but again, max heart rate 173. And it was on this next float that I decided to have a walk to really drop that heart rate, because it just wasn't coming down. I knew I wouldn't have been able to complete the set unless I got it to come down in between each rep. So 2 minutes float/walk recovery, got heart rate back down to 161, and then I did the 2 400s, same pace, give or take though. It's 1 minute 34, average heart rate 169, So I don't know what the pace is working out to these to be, but they're all just on 15.5 Ks an hour. 2 minutes recovery. Walking again on these ones. Proper walk to get the heart rate back down, 148 minimum. 400 on, 122 off, and then into 200s to 250 seconds. Doesn't quite sound right. Must have been a bit longer. Max heart rate 170, and I did float this 30 seconds, and you can see the heart rate continued to rise even though I turned the speed down. 30 seconds, average heart rate 173 into the last 246 seconds. Average heart rate 174, then into a cool down. You can see how long it took to drop that heart rate. Immediately after that last rep, though, put the AC onto 16 to try and cool that room down, and then just jog through another to round out 10K. Even though that room temp started to come down a little bit and I had the cold air blowing straight on me, the heart rate still was just a little bit cooked and stayed up for the most of that cool down. So that was that heat session on the treadmill, 10Ks, 51 minutes complete, 506 average, and that rounds out my week. I'm doing nothing this Saturday. So for the totals for this week, ended up with just 55K of running. So not a huge week on the feet, but still overall 12 and a half hours. 12 and a half hours of training, which I think is pretty good for kind of that first week of taper and starting to get the body really freshened and prepped up for the marathon next week. So that brings us now to 7 days out from Gold Coast Marathon, and I'm damn excited to see how all this stuff has played out and see how it all works next weekend. It's very exciting. It's a bit nerve-wracking as well, trying to kind of figure out the best way to approach the race, but I think I've kind of come to a conclusion on the approach that I'm going to have. I've mucked around with some spreadsheets and pace and calculators and all this kind of stuff, and just trying to build a good strategy and something to hold myself accountable for in that race. So it's not about just going out blind and seeing what happens. It's about going out calculated, with the knowledge that I've kind of built, knowing how I perform, how I run, the way I like to run, all things considered, being fresh, being healthy, that adrenaline of a big city marathon. It's going to be all happening, and it's pretty exciting to kind of put all this work to the real test next Sunday. So I've got my race week planned out here. Without the race on Sunday, I've got 44.5K planned running in the lead up, and a few hours on the bike as well. So Monday, tomorrow, exactly like I've been doing every Monday, easy ride and recovery in the afternoon. I'm going to do that same trainer session that I've been doing the last 2 Tuesdays again on Tuesday morning with the heat as well, and an easy run. Wednesday, I've got a kick down session planned. So planned this at an hour and 3 minutes in total, 14.5K, 20-minute warm-up, and then 3 lots of 7 kind of tempo into 2 minutes hard, with a 2 minutes recovery, 10 minutes cool down. So that'll kind of be the very last bit of intensity before completely dropping it out for the rest of the week. massage Wednesday afternoon, 12K easy run Thursday morning, recovery session on the trainer on Thursday afternoon. Got heat there in brackets, but may or may not do heat. And then gonna start traveling down on Thursday afternoon actually, and then Friday, travel the rest of the way on Friday, get some strides in, with some extra recovery session, and then just an easy 6Ks as well on the Saturday, the day before. So hopefully I come into the day on Sunday feeling good, feeling fresh, but like still moving, like still important, I think, to just keep moving through that race week as much as you can without being silly. So all these sessions this should be simple enough to work through, and I should just begin to feel better and better as the week goes on. By Thursday, Friday, I hope to be pretty well feeling immaculate and ready to roll. So it's very exciting. 7 days out to a Gold Coast, finally. It felt like the first part of the build went pretty quick, and I felt like all of a sudden I was at like 4 weeks out. But the last 2 to 3 weeks has kind of just felt like it's gone on a bit too long. And I think that's just due to kind of still not being 100% and still having to be cautious of everything. And, you kind of just want to be 100% so you don't kind of have to be cautious. So finally getting to race week now, sitting here feeling great and ready to go. So I think I'm going to try and upload one more video through the week next week. Not going through any training stuff, but just kind of talking over my race plan for the Sunday. So hopefully get that up prior to traveling to the Gold Coast on Friday. But then otherwise, the next video after that will probably be the week after sometime, recapping the race and kind of going through all of that, which is super exciting. And I'll do a full race recap on it, and we'll go through the data of it all. So bloody subscribe to my channel.